Yeah, I love how close you are to the developer community. Just me myself being in the community, I know for a fact that people really want these private and local models. So, first portion really focused on why open source is good for developers, and it felt
Yeah.
like really spot on. Um, can you talk more about like what the broad societal implications are of open source AI?
Yeah, I mean, my view is that open source is a really important ingredient to having a positive AI future. And that there are all these awesome things that AI is going to bring in terms of productivity gains and creativity enhancements for people. And hopefully it'll help us with research and things like that. But I think open source is an important part of how we make sure that this benefits everyone and is accessible to everyone and isn't something that's just locked into a handful of big companies. Um, at the same time, I actually think that open source is going to end up being the safer and more secure way to develop AI. I know that there's sort of a debate today about is open source safe? And I actually take the different position on it. It's not only do I think it's safe, I think it's safer than the alternative of closed development. And I sort of break it down into, there are lots of different kinds of harm. So you can't just talk about one type of thing. But on this, I think that there's unintentional harms. So the system goes off the rails in some way that people didn't intend. And then there's intentional harms where you have like some bad actors trying to use the system to do something bad. When it comes to unintentional harms, which I think, by the way, it's worth noting that like most of the sci-fi scenarios that people worry about of AI just going rogue are kind of unintentional. I actually think that open source should be safer on that because it will have more scrutiny, it'll have more transparency, um, and I think all the developers who use it with all the Llama Guard and the safety tools that it comes with, um, there's going to be so much scrutiny and testing and pressure on those that my guess is that it will have kind of just like traditional open source software, any kind of issues with it, I think will be ironed out and fixed a lot quicker than with the closed models. So I think you've got that on kind of unintentional harm, which is why I think most of the discussion around safety for open source revolves around intentional harm. It's okay, it's open, it's out there. How are you going to stop bad actors from doing it, doing bad things with it? Um, there, I think you basically want to probably divide the problem into kind of smaller actors, like an individual or some kind of smaller group that's trying to create some mayhem, and larger actors who are more sophisticated and have huge amounts of resources, like big nation states. I think it's kind of a different mix for the two of those. Um, for the smaller actors, and my view on this is that the way that I think that having a balance of power on this is super important. What we've done in managing our social networks is we have all these kind of bad actors who are trying to do kind of bad stuff on our networks, and and a lot of times they deploy AI systems to do that. And the way that we stop them and identify them is by having more sophisticated AI systems that have more compute to go find what they're doing. So I think that this is actually pretty similar to the way that governments and law enforcement essentially maintain order in society. It's like, yeah, you have a bunch of rogue people who might be committing crimes, but generally the police forces and the militaries are much better funded, have more resources, and I think that that's basically going to be true here. As a matter of fact, I think what you want is for open source to be widely deployed, which I think that there's sort of a risk if it's closed that that's not the case. But when it's open, you're going to have all these big institutions that have a ton of resources that they can basically deploy these systems in a way that I think will check bad actors. Then you get to the question of basically, you know, folks like China or like large sophisticated actors. And one of the questions that you sometimes hear debated is like, okay, if you're open sourcing the really advanced models, how do you make it so that it doesn't get to China or they're not going to use that against us? Um, and that's sometimes an argument that people have for, hey, you should lock down development. But I think that that's sort of missing a few things. One is that in order for this all to work, the US has to have an advantage in the first place, or the West. And in kind of our advantage is basically open and decentralized innovation, where it's not just a small number of big companies or labs, it's startups and universities and individuals hacking on things who aren't even parts of companies. And that's a big part of it. And you don't want to shut that down. So, and I think if you do, you increase the chance that we don't even lead in the first place. But then I think you get to the issue, which is okay, like China, or not even China, any government, um, there are all the risks of kind of stealing the models and espionage. I mean, a lot of the models fit on a hard drive that you can quickly put in your backpack or whatever, and it's um, I just think we need to be realistic about how likely it is that we can secure, and not just not us, but like any of the tech companies can secure any of these models long term against very sophisticated efforts to do that. So my own fear is that if we lock down development, we end up in a world where basically you have a small number of companies plus all the adversaries who can steal the model are the only ones who have access. But all the startups, all the universities, all the individual hackers are kind of just left out and don't have the ability to do this. So my own view is that a realistic aim that we should hope for is that we use open source to basically develop the leading and most robust ecosystem in the world, in that we have an expectation that our companies work closely with our government and allied governments on national security, so that way our governments can persistently just be integrating the latest technology and have a whatever it is, a 6-month advantage, 8-month advantage on our adversaries. And I think that that's I don't know that in this world you get a 10-year permanent advantage, but I think a kind of perpetual lead actually will make us more safe, in one where we're leading, than the model that others are advocating, which is okay, you have a small number of closed labs, they lock down development, we probably risk being in the lead at all, like probably the other governments are getting access to it. It's that's my view. I actually think on both these things, spreading prosperity for more evenly around the world, making it so that there can be more progress, and on safety, I think we're basically just going to find over time that open source leads. Look, there are going to be issues, right? It's like we'll have to mitigate the issues. We're going to test everything rigorously. We work with governments on all this stuff. We'll continue doing that. But that's my view of kind of where the equilibrium, I think, will settle out given what I know today.